You're listening to the Franchise Freedom Podcast with Giuseppe Grammatico.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, your franchise guide, the show where we help corporate executives experience time and financial freedom via franchising. Thanks for joining us today. So today wanted to confront some franchise myths and misconceptions. And these are typically I get questions on the show, YouTube channel, social media. These I actually put together based off of, I would say, the last 2 or 3 months of conversations I have with individuals looking to potentially invest in a franchise. So we're gonna dive in. We're gonna tackle a handful here, and would love to know if you have any specific questions, or if you want to know if it's a myth or not. So definitely leave your comments, shoot me an email. Would love to chat. And to everyone listening in, you can always reach me. I'm gonna put my contact information. So if you do have a question or prefer to speak, we offer a 20-minute call to everyone looking to get their franchise questions asked, figure out if a franchise may be a good fit. So ggthefranchiseguy.com/calendar, and you could book a 20-minute call. There's never a cost for the service, no contract, nothing like that. We're here to help. And figure out if a franchise may or may not be a good fit. So let's take that off the screen here. So let's dive in. So let's look at these myths. So myth number one, actually, this one came up not only on conversation, but from someone looking to invest in a franchise, but also on a podcast. And that individual kept insisting that the franchisee does not own the business. And that is definitely a myth. Owning a franchise, you own your own business. You're going to set up your own legal entity. Maybe it's an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corporation, and you will own that business. And after doing some digging and figuring out why they felt that way, basically what it came down to was one particular franchise was charging a 5% royalty on all the revenue. That's typically how they're structured. It's a percentage of royalty, and their thought process was, well, if they're essentially paying 5%, the franchisor owns the 5%, which is simply not the case. That royalty, you're getting something in return, obviously, for that royalty. But when you go to sell the business, you are not giving up any equity. You own the business 100%. So that was definitely a myth, or that's come up more than once. So I wanted to quickly address that. The second one here, no autonomy. The franchisor is going to tell me what to do, and that is basically it. I have to follow step by step. So taking a step back here, the value proposition of a franchise is really to follow their system. And one of the reasons I see a lot of franchises fail, I'm not saying the only reason, but one of the reasons is that they're not following the system of the franchise. And that's really what you're buying. You're buying that system, that blueprint or guide. So when it comes to autonomy, you do have autonomy in the business. You can, they're going to give you a playbook. They may give you ideas, maybe 20 different marketing strategies and ideas that work. They may make it optional if you would like to use the marketing from the brand. Make it optional to use the call center for the brand. Some are mandatory, some are going to be optional. This is case by case. It's not by industry. It's basically how the franchisor prefers to do business. And there's no secrets. This is all outlined in conversations and in their franchise disclosure document. But in many cases, it may be that they handle all the online marketing. And as a franchise owner offering a home service, you may go door to door and use door hangers, or decide that you have as they tell me, a face for radio, as they jokingly say, and put together a podcast or start a podcast. So definitely autonomy. I think it's more of if you want that blueprint, that guide, that system that you want to follow or not. Again, no right or wrongs here, but it's really what you're looking for to get up and running. So that's the second one. The third one, and my favorite, it's all fast food. And that is one of the 70 plus industries. I think 70 to 75 industries. Basically, if there's a business, there's a franchise. So I've talked about this on the show. So fast food is definitely one popular, as that's what people pass maybe on their commute home or to work. And but there are things such as eyelash extensions, franchises, pet waste removal, business coaching, mosquito spraying, massages, haircuts. The list goes on and on. So mental health, believe it or not, franchises. So if you can think of the business, there's a franchise. So 70, 75 plus industries, 4,000 franchises in the US and Canada alone. So definitely not all fast food. I truly believe if a franchise is the right path, there's a franchise for everyone. I'm not going to look at franchising or a specific business because I need experience. Now, this one comes up more often than I anticipated. Just I kind of assumed certain things were known. And really what it comes down to is there are certain franchises that do require experience. Maybe they require you to work in healthcare or be a physician for a specific business. But a majority of the brands we work with do not require any experience in owning a business and in that particular industry. What they are looking for is the right match. So they're looking for a skill set. So if the role of the franchisee is to drive the business in the very beginning and to bring on new customers, they may want you to be extroverted, go out, cold call, cold walk, as we call it, jump on webinars and shows and present to audiences. They're going to look for that skill set. It may be a business where a lot of the marketing, call center things are done for you, but it does require a larger employee count. We see that in industries like building maintenance and cleaning and things like that, where they're going to look for a management skill set, looking for experience managing, dozen or more employees, contractors and things like that. So you don't necessarily need experience in the business or in business ownership or the franchise, but looking for specific skill sets. Money, I don't have enough money. Now, this one really isn't a myth. It falls in misconception because most people just look into what they have in their bank account and say, well, I got $10,000 in my bank account, 50,000, whatever the number is, and that's not enough for a franchise. Now, this is the whole conversation around funding, and what I will say is this: I recommend everyone speak with a funding partner. We recommend a partner to every single person that we talk with, and some people choose to self-fund, but I recommend them more for the educational piece to kind of figure out what the options are to that individual. But depending on your situation, if you're leaving your employer to run this full time, or just leaving your employer to launch the business, that opens up the ideas of using a Rob's plan. What is it? Rollover business startup. So essentially using your retirement assets to fund the business if you, again, qualify. SBA loans, where maybe the project cost is several $100,000, but looking at the SBA, you may only have to put down 20 or 30%. So before ruling yourself out, it's always a good idea to speak with a funding partner, even though you may not have the money readily available, or still light on liquidity and net worth. But it's a good idea, in my opinion, to have those conversations. They're free. And what's nice about them is they can get you pre-approved, and they can also give you ideas. If you need to get your credit score up, it's good to work on that now so that you have 1, 2, 3, 6 months to get the score up. If your net worth is good, but your liquidity is a little bit light, if you're at 70,000 and the franchisor requirement is to have 100,000, putting together a plan on getting that number. Maybe it's a side job, maybe it's getting a loan from a family member, whatever the case may be, putting together that plan so that you're properly set up, via the funding. Let's see. This one came up, and I created a short video a couple years back. If I don't follow the system, the franchisor will take the franchise back. And this is one where these are extreme cases, but what happens with the franchise agreement is they're going to outline exactly expectations, if certain vendors need to be used, or certain requirements, whatever the case may be. So what they'll do is, franchisor is not going to grab take the franchise back. What they're going to do is if at any point in time, in many cases, this is not done intentionally, the system is not followed, maybe the wrong branding is being used where you use a local printer and the font is off, or you added some additional services, not realizing that was not in line. First off, always ask the franchisor directly, after looking at the franchise disclosure document, the FDD. But in the event that would come up, you may hear from the franchisor, and that's typically a letter saying you're not in line with the agreement, the FDD. And we're going to request that you make that change or remove that marketing piece or change the font so that everything lines up. And typically it's a letter, and they're giving you a fixed amount of time to resolve that and have a conversation so it doesn't happen again. So these aren't surprise things that come up and all of a sudden the franchisor takes the brand back. I think I've seen and heard of, I should say, not personally, but I've heard through other conversations where it's happened, and that's been multiple infringements where it was, I think in that particular case was in the food business, fast food, where appropriate product was being used and the appropriate napkins and the cups and things like that, because it was not falling in line with the brand itself. And the whole point of, especially in the fast food business, is that they want to keep everything consistent from Florida to California, same look and feel, cups, food, you name it. So doesn't matter what state you're in, you're getting the exact same product and experience. So let's see. A franchise is more money than a startup, or more expensive. Now, we could do a show just on this topic alone. And I think why this is coming up is when you buy a franchise, you're paying a one-time franchise fee. So when the franchise company gives you the FDD, and it's in the item 7 in that franchise disclosure document, they're talking about the total investment. They're factoring in the franchise fee. They're also factoring in, just say, 3 months working in capital, 3 months marketing, W-2 employee costs, travel to training, certification, licensing, the technology, vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. So, you may start off with a $50,000 franchise fee, and then after all said and done, you may be at 100. You may be at 150,000. Keeping in mind that this isn't the money you're coming up day one. It's really kind of let's plan out for the first 3 months, and maybe a little bit longer, maybe 6. So depending on that franchisor, when you're looking at the itemized item 7, which is giving you all the investment, the line by line of exactly what your expenses will be, you want to make sure you're clear as to the time frame. So I wouldn't say a franchise is necessarily more expensive. Just say the franchise fee is $50,000. So let's put all the other expenses aside that you would incur in any other business. I would look at it as you're getting a system that franchisor has spent a lot more than $50,000. It could have been hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to perfect. So you're walking in day one, signing a franchise agreement and being open as little as 30 days, whereas a startup may take you a year, several years to get up and running until you figure out the system. You may make more mistakes in that process. So what are those mistakes costing? And then you have the opportunity costs of getting up and running in 30, 60, or 90 days with a franchise, such as a coaching franchise that doesn't really require an office, brick and mortar, or equipment. That's going to be open much quicker. So they're getting you up and running versus what was the opportunity cost of taking a year to launch that business. Whereas, apples to apples, if it took you a year to launch the startup, obviously zero revenue, but with that franchisor, you're up and running in 30 days. You have 11 months of business, of being open and generating revenue and profit, potentially profit, obviously, in 11 months. So when you factor all in, I would not necessarily say it is a larger investment or more expensive. It's really figuring out if you want the system built for you so that you can run with it, or if you're looking in the complete different direction and figuring, I want to create the brand from scratch, the vendors, all the different processes involved. And then I'm gonna finish off with this one. With the success rate, I had an individual pulling up and asking me a question, but pulling up stats and success rates. And, the hard part with success rate is that not every franchise is built the same. And realistically, there's a lot of factors that come into play. So there are stats out there. I don't know how accurate they are. And what I tell everyone is, if you take a step back, a franchise is a business, just like any other business, except that you have the blueprint and the guide. So as I talk about in the book behind me, Franchise Freedom, you're getting that unfair advantage of having the system and everything built out for you. So if you, and there's a lot of ifs here, but if you spend the time and really figure out the right brand for you, not based off your interests necessarily, but based off of skill sets and what that life looks like. If it's a life where you're looking to create, more important than anything else, time freedom, you want a business that can afford you that. Systems in place, maybe has less employees, and a few other factors. So I think if you align it the correct way and make sure you have funding in place, find the right franchise, and then in the case where you're running it semi-absentee, it's really finding the right general manager. It increases the odds of success. You have the franchisor. The last thing they want you to do is for you to go out of business, to struggle, and they'll do anything they can. But at the end of the day, it is your business, as we talked about in myth number one. You don't own the business. It's 100% yours, but they want to support you. They want you to be successful. Their goals are aligned. You're an extension of their brand, and they typically make money, percentage of revenue is how they structure their royalty, although there are others that will charge you a flat amount. But I would say the majority of the brands I've seen are charging a percentage of royalty. So I think if you find the right brand, you're properly funded, you don't overextend yourself, you're focusing on the skill set, you're focusing on the role, what you'll be doing in the business, and really spending the time there and doing your due diligence. Not just, I can't tell you how many people nail this part of the equation, talk to the franchisor and do all that. And then I find out afterwards, why did you struggle? And they said, well, I didn't realize X, Y, and Z. And I said, well, did you work with a coach? Did you do it on your own? And in some cases, it's both. But not speaking and validating with current franchisees, which I think is a huge miss. You need to speak with the franchisees. They are going to give you their honest opinion as to how things are going. And if the good, the bad, and everything in between, you want that important feedback because they are on the front lines running these businesses. So if they had a rough start, if they lost money their first year, why? Did you not follow the system? Was it the franchise? Was the franchise transitioning their marketing? Was there turnover? I spoke with a gentleman and he struggled, and he said, well, it had nothing to do with the franchisor. I was going through a divorce. I spoke with someone else that said they did everything right, and the franchisor had a lot of changes within the model and staff changes and things like that. So that was on the franchisor. So sometimes we can't avoid certain things, but we want to do as much due diligence as possible, ask questions, and speak with franchisees, whether in person, live calls, pre-recorded calls. But you want to do everything and set yourself up for success, but really figure out, do you want the model built for you? Talk to the franchisor, skill set, role, and things like that, and you'll improve the odds. But just like any other business, there is a risk involved with any business, but there's also rewards that come along with that risk. So those are 8. I'm going to stop there as I try to keep these between 10 to 20 minutes. So would love to hear your feedback, and if you have an additional question or a myth, or if you're not sure if it's a myth or not, send them my way, and I'll put my link here. So ggthefranchiseguy.com. You can send me a message through there. You can book a call on the calendar. You can leave comments on where you see this on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, as well as YouTube. Would love to hear your comments. And I'm basing a lot of these, as I mentioned the previous episode, a lot of these shows based off your questions. And we got some great shows around legal and in the franchise disclosure document review. We got some. We did some polls, and funding has been a hot topic question people had. So we're going to talk about ways to fund your franchise and any updates for 2023 with our great funding partners. And again, would love to hear your feedback. So if you're ready to chat, book a call with me. 20 minutes. We'll figure out if a franchise is a great fit. Nothing to sell. Our services are free. And again, love to help you out and look forward to your feedback. Have a great day, everyone. And let's talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Whenever you're ready, here are 3 ways Giuseppe can help. 1. If you've ever considered owning a business of any kind, you owe it to yourself to get a copy of Giuseppe's book, Franchise Freedom. Download your free copy at ggthefranchiseguide.com/book. 2. Want to understand how successful executives make the transition from corporate to owning their own franchise? Join Giuseppe's next online presentation, Franchise Freedom: How to Escape the Corporate World and Have Financial and Time Freedom by Owning a Franchise, by going to ggthefranchiseguide.com/video. 3. Want to work with Giuseppe one-on-one to identify the right franchise opportunity for you, to navigate the process, and get plugged into experienced franchising advisors? Send him an email to gg@ggthefranchiseguide.com with one-on-one in the subject, and he'll send you all the details.